came into a room here in the. Oh,
We're live! Hello! Hi, 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 hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome back with Despise Girls.
Yay!
Yeah, right now, today, we won't have Tetet with us, which is so sad, right?
We are.
Hopefully, she will be back with us the next Despise Girls.
We've been
Amelia,
trying for
hmm.
weeks to be together, and every time, every week is like, no, I can't, no, I can't. So we've tried to be the three of us together, and just now, recently, Ted let us know that she can't be with us, but we said we have to do it anyway. It's
We
been
have
so
to do it
long.
anyway. We have to do it anyway, really.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's always a need for us to also catch up. I know that you and Tetet have been, going to places and then, pushing for our agenda for economic justice, right? Yeah. For me, I've been going to a lot of, consolidation with different movements around many issues. So a lot
Yeah.
of things happening. Maybe next week, yeah, or the next session, we were going to do that catch up session soon,
Yes,
no?
we need a catch-up session. Totally. But I just want to tell you that I'm in the World Bank building, and
Oh,
um,
okay.
and I just knocked into a room, so I don't know if I'm gonna be kicked out. I
Oh
just saw a door open,
no.
and I'm like, I'm gonna get it. So if you go and see me, that I'm going to take taken to jail. I did it for you.
So you just like go into a room and then you just occupy it, right? For
Yeah.
these Spice Girls and all of us.
Occupy the Spice Girls.
Occupy the space. That's amazing. That's what we need to do all the time. But also this week is kind of special, no, Amelia?
It
Because
is.
it's special. What is it? Like what is going on this week, We
Yeah, so this is what we're very happy to be with our audience, but also very happy for a special session on the Despise Girls. And this is why we were really trying to connect today despite everything. And as Rina was saying, we will do our catch up um later on. But for us, it is really important to stand in solidarity with the 2022 Global Week of Action for Justice and Debt Cancellation that is
mm,
happening this week, and especially today on the 12th. The global campaign on debt justice is mobilizing around a huge festival with different events. And so this is our contribution as the Spice Girls to the Global Week of Action. And for us, it's really important. If you recall, last week we had Lydie Nackfield with us. And this year we want to keep on talking about what's happened in the debt justice movement, what has been going on. And this week, since it's also happening, the annual meeting here at the World Bank and the IMF, and how they are actually promoting more debt and more austerity, and the damaging impact it's having on the ground. So it's also, it happens at the same time, precisely to remind the people that this debt crisis is not happening in abstract, right? There are responsibles, there are uh, let us say, intentional proposals for keeping the reality of people as it is. And this is happening in these places that are undemocratic, that are promoting all of these false solutions. So we're standing in solidarity with the debt justice movement today, and this is why we're having this session.
yeah, yeah, and I know that justice movement have a long history, right? And I think that is very global South driven, a movement that has been, going on for a while, But what I understood from this Global Week of Action for Debt Cancellation it's, like it started around like 2020, because when there is a multiple crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic that really intensified the economic recession, no, and then also highlighting the climate emergency that is spotlighted, and then the urgency of raising the calls for debt cancellation. So I think that this time, yeah, they call it also the Global Week of Action for Debt Cancellation. They also, but what I understood that this time they have a little bit different title, which is they call for Global Week of Action for Justice and Debt Cancellation. So they
Mhm.
include the term justice, which is great, and then it's going to be around for everyone from 10 until 7 October, just like what said, no? And then the World Bank is now, right? Amelia, what is the World Bank
Yes.
actually? It's currently
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's their annual meeting of the World Bank, and then I think it's very very relevant. Like talking about debt cancellation, and then also have a global week of action during the World Bank and IMF annual meeting. And yeah, just like what you say, we stand in solidarity with the millions of people who have been relentlessly going to the street asking, demanding to end debt domination, especially for the global south countries.
Yes, truly. And just want to say, to emphasize what you were saying, um, the movement is trying to mobilize precisely the same way on the annuals, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, to protest for their role in promoting a debt crisis and austerity measures, and then they blame our developing countries like, oh, why are you so doing so badly, and they are imposing all of these conditionalities that are so colonial in its logic from the standing. And so yes, it's extremely worrisome. So I just want to go into the catching up and tell you so many things, but because it relates. But let me tell you something related to this Global Week of Action from our end, from a feminist standpoint, which is that the IMF released this gender strategy, this gender mainstreaming strategy some months ago, and Equidad, alongside the Campaign of Campaigns and other organizations, 12 organizations in total, we submitted a letter to the IMF saying, not in our name, right? The IMF is saying, oh, we're going to have a gender strategy, so we're going to go and have a further presence at the territory level, at the national level. And that would mean, of course, undermining the voices of feminists and feminist economies, the feminist movement, the mechanism of advancement of women, because we know that they come and they flash the cash, right? It's like, so this is what you need to do, and I have the money, so all of the expertise on the ground is going to be totally rated. And expanding a presence of the IMF in a field that is not part of its mandate. They are not expert on gender. They don't even recognize the human rights framework, even less women's human rights. And so it is very concerning, and they're going to duplicate databases on so many issues. They say, oh, we care about indicators such as health, access to health and education. It's like, yeah, that's already been done. That's so 80s, that's there. Like, we don't need you to come and threaten our governments just to come up with the existing data. They're not investing in new data. I mean, at least they would say, "Oh, we're interested about the care economy and time use users surveys for everybody." No, they're not doing that. So it's really like it's horrible. It's terrible. So we're circulating a letter to gather endorsements. So we will post the link here in the chat for people to join. Um, and so it is really important that we recognize that the doings of the IFIs are taking us where we are in terms of debt, right? And the austerity measures, that if countries cannot pay um, access to health, to education, to any sort of public service, to pay for the climate finance, it is because they are paying debt servicing to private creditors and public lenders. and it is obscene. So yeah, just gonna leave it there. So to hear Rina, but this is why everything is interrelated: the climate crisis, the debt crisis, the role of these economic institutions, and we wanted to make all of these connections from a feminist point of view.
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, but Amelia, I heard about this gender strategy, right? And I was like, kind of really curious about that too. Like, are they is actually looking at the strategy, looking at the issue of the impact of their policies or projects to women, right? I don't think so, right? Like, what kind of strategy that they are talking about? And I mean, like, I'm without touching that, without touching the issue, that issue, I think that it will, it won't be a really gender strategy, yeah. And then it's just like going to be like another, there. I don't want to say bullshit. Can I say
Yeah,
bullshit?
and
Yeah, like really, really bullshit. Anyway, so like IMF, and then with the issue of debt, right? And then I just really want to look into the issue of debt itself, and
yeah,
then why we call it a debt trap, like a lot,
yeah.
we heard it a lot of time. There's a lot of debate about it nowadays. You can see it in the newspaper. There's a lot of
Mm,
narrative around that threat diplomacy and etc. And then I think that like for me, even before the crisis, right, the debt issue, and then the debt crisis is already happening, right? And then much of this debt is actually really illegitimate.
yeah,
They're lent irresponsibly and then also unfairly, and then really used to finance harmful projects and policies. That's what's happening in my country. That is going to, big, massive infrastructure projects, and
yeah,
then also policies that keep on, impacting women, for instance, and also in the community, and then also really failing to comply with any legal and democratic requirements, right? So that is already illegitimate and already unsustainable. And now the COVID-19 situation, and then suddenly what they're doing, they actually try to solve the issue by increasing more debt to the developing country. I mean, I don't know where is the logic behind that. And then I think that maybe like in that IMF and World Bank meeting right now, Amelia, do they really talk about it? Do they really think that their a solution on debt relief or debt suspension is something really going to work? Do they really believe it? So what do you think?
they're disgusting.
Like really, right? Like it's just unbelievable.
It is. It is, and they come and preach us like, oh, you don't understand how the macroeconomy works, and so this is so needed. And so, yes, it is terrible. And we just want to say, in this moment, it is really dire because, as you were mentioning, the pandemic already put us in a track in which the health services, I mean, everything was impacted, right? But then with the climate emergency, it adds a different layer of survival for the entire species. And our countries do not have the capital to afford that. And
Yeah,
we have seen in the late year several countries in very, very urgent moments like Argentina, Sri Lanka, Zambia. We're seeing their crisis unfold as it is happening in the moment, and the desperation of people saying, we don't have money, and why are we paying debt servicing, like the interests of this loan, rather than spending it in the survival of our people and the planet. So it is really extreme. And I think Sri Lanka is the most recent case, but it's like Argentina just happened some months ago. We heard the desperation of the social movements asking the Argentinian government, don't pay, don't pay. Why are we paying? Why are we restructuring our debt if this is something that is really exploitative, right? And so I think there was a, in the case of Argentina, I'm not an expert, but I heard that there was a split division in civil society. Some of them were calling, so we cannot go into a debt default and then fall into a ranking of oh, this country cannot pay, and therefore they shouldn't get any more loans, as opposed to and no country wants to be the first one in saying I'm not paying. But that would be a great solution for everyone, really, if all of the developing countries call for debt cancellation and they just say we're not going to pay something that is unfair, that is exploitative, that is undermining the dignity and human rights of our people and the planet. So it was very dire, and I know Sri Lanka is in the same situation at the moment, with a lot of social unrest as well. And of course, that comes paired along with a regime that is just privileging the the relationship of the Ministry of Finance with the financial institutions and creditors, as opposed to privileging the citizenship and the ownership of their national economy. So yeah, it is really extreme. So the debt trap is that they are falling into these loans. They want to get access to more loans, and therefore they are forced to restructuring, to renegotiate the existing debt. But they're already really caught up in a trap of not being able to pay. And at the same time, they feel like they can't get away with that dynamic, because otherwise they would be ostracized from the international community. So it is really horrifying the way that developed countries and the private actors are pushing developing countries into this extreme situation.
Yeah, and I actually just met. We have a meeting. This is APWLD meeting with our Sri Lankan members, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then what we did the first time that we heard about the situation, we gather our members, mostly coming from the feminist women's rights grassroots women's group, right? And then really what they're sharing to me is like how that Sri Lanka is really currently in its worst economic and financial crisis. That
Mm.
they talk about, the power cuts, food shortage, right? Lack of fuel, cooking gas, like really the basic necessities, right? And then really like this is a moment where they say that people only eat once a day, and then really going into the deepened hunger and deprivation, right? And then also in the same time they also have faced the challenge of being silenced when they're going to the street, with tear gas, water cannons, and etc., etc. But
Gosh.
I think what they say to me is very much the same, because our members, in Sri Lanka, they said that they're talking about all of this, and then they're also talking about even in the situation of disaster when we cannot even get, you know, um, paths for women, on the issue of crisis, and all of those stuff. And then when women are the one who actually not eat, when the family
Mm.
is starving, right? So this is also what they talk about. And then the livelihood, the issue of women fisher folk, the issue that living in the coastal area, because Sri Lanka is a coastal area. But the thing, like when we ask what is actually the demands that we want, and then what kind
Mm.
of campaign that we can do, they say to really change the system and
Yes.
really cancel the debt. It's very clear with them,
Yes.
that it is a systemic issue that they
Yes.
are facing. It's not only the symptoms that they are actually looking at, they're looking at of the structural causes of it. And then they also said that, even before COVID, right? Like the Sri Lanka already really, really have a high debt to GDP ratio. It's even more like for instance in 2019 is rising from 42% in 2019. It become 104% in 2021, right? So it's really really high. And then they also, what I really really felt touched also when they say that yes, we actually want to have this campaign, and then they also said that what we need is a alternative narrative, and then also we need a backup from our feminist friends, from our feminist groups in different countries and different region and different in the global level to actually really strengthening the narrative to change the macroeconomic policies, they said. Because
Mm.
we in Sri Lanka, the feminist group in Sri Lanka, they've been saying it, but they keep on being rejected,
Mm.
shamed, pushed back by all these think tanks and academics,
Yes. Yeah.
that are completely saying different things, that, oh, you need to look into
Mm.
the IMF, you need to really follow their prescription, all
Yeah.
of those stuff. And then so they really, really need our support. And then they also said that it's not about the Sri Lanka alone. So if we're going to
Yes.
have a campaign about it, make a campaign that also together with the other countries. And then this is why this is important, because now we are talking about debt cancellation. And
Yeah.
then that is actually what we are trying to say. And then they also
Yeah.
said that we need to talk about Pakistan, because it's really the nexus of
Mm.
the climate crisis and then the debt crisis that also
Yeah.
happening in Pakistan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just in a side event now. Um, I'm sorry I can't be as much enthusiastic as usual, but if I start to yell too much, people is gonna kick me out of the room. But I was in a panel just now, and Yolanda Fresnillo was making an intervention. We should invite
Yes.
Yolanda next time, or
Mm.
one of the time after our catch up.
Mm.
She's an expert on debt, and she was actually mentioning also that there are many false solutions within the debt framing, right? For instance, the climate debt swaps, which is like if it's you're a developing country, you are indebted, and then the uh, finance institution comes and say, let's gonna swap your debt for a project of investment. So it's like supposedly there are small benefits to shifting your debt and to find supposedly investment in environmental um, agendas or social agendas. And she was telling us about one of the Spanish lender who was saying, okay, so it was trying to bring in an educational component to the swap. So it's like, so you have this debt, then we're gonna shift this so that it comes an investment for education. But I have the Spanish company that can print your books so that they get, all of the money that is supposedly swapped. So it's gonna be extracted for a Spanish company, private, and the government says, yeah, so this is a good deal for you, but actually the money is gonna not remain in the country, but it's gonna go to a Spanish private investor. So it's
Oh
like, it's
my
disgusting.
God.
And she was saying this is just a tiny example on how initially from the start that swaps are so minor, like it's really a false solution. But then the way they're using the debt discourse to do some sort of positive social environmental impact and whatever, and they bring again private investors to benefit and profit from the national debt of countries, which is just disgusting. So Yolanda was saying we need to bring this into more awareness for the movement, because many environmentalists are calling for debt swaps because they think, oh, I think this sounds innovative, right? Like this is gonna help to shift the debt crisis into an investment for climate solutions. And it's not, and we need to call them out. All of the false solutions in every field, like women's empowerment, net zero,
Oh
all of those things.
my,
And now we're
women's
adding
empowerment. Shall we
debt
talk about
swaps, debt swaps to our list of false solutions.
Oh my God. Then there's so many false solution on the issue of debt, right? Like
Yes.
yeah, there's also like what I know, the debt surface suspension or the debt suspension surface
Mm,
initiative, right?
mm,
And then also the common framework that is
yeah.
also by the G20. But all of that is only talking about suspension, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? What
Yes.
is what make it
And that you
problematic.
pay later.
You pay you pay later and then not cancellation at all. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and this is really important because even in the NGO world, they talk about debt relief, debt restructuring, and we are calling for debt cancellation. We think
Mhm.
some of the debts that are more recent one, they have to happen on their fair terms. But there are debts that have been, on the one hand, as you were saying, illegitimate, and others that are really abusive and they cannot continue. They have been paid already, and the interest rates just keep on enslaving our countries, and that needs to be cancelled. So there is no discussion there. It's not. What is the jubilee, the Christian discourse on pardoning debt? It's like, no, it's not pardoning debt. There is nothing wrong with those who got the debt. So it's debt cancellation, and that's a huge difference.
Exactly. And then the issue of that is really actually really center of many economic justice issues and economic justice struggle. For me, is like because debt issue or debt has been used as a tool for domination, right? Like you create a dependency of the developing country to have debt and then to actually to add more, and then also with all those conditionalities that attach to it, including the austerity measure that you mentioned before, Amelia, and then also really making the government have no policy control and then really
Yep.
dictating the country's governance on what sector that they need to invest in, the amount of public spending that is permitted, all of those stuff. So I really felt that this is a tool for domination, and then that's why it's in the heart of the economic justice struggle, because it's talking about everything. You're talking about sovereignty of the
Yeah.
country, right?
Yes,
Mm,
yes, and precisely as you were saying, Denise is helping us see the call for with the hashtag cancel the debt now to sign for this statement and push the demand by signing in a link. So please, everybody who watches this video, go ahead and support this mobilization. And we have been discussing here in different moments how in the 70s and 80s there was a huge push against debt in the Latin American countries, for instance, and against the IMF and the World Bank, and then it sort of died down. And then in the 2000s, Yolanda was reminding us how there was this call for debt cancellation. And so we need to revive these huge campaigns globally. And I understand this week of debt justice is really important to call that out precisely in the face of the IFIs, but we can mobilize at home in sending videos and to also call for for a more fair economic and financial system.
mm, mm. I'm actually wondering because I also, reading the statement, right? And then it really said that the immediate debt cancellation by all lenders, right?
Mm.
International financial institution, governments, and private lenders to enable people to deal with the multiple crises and stronger legislation, right? That's what they say. But I just want to have like a more explanation, Amelia. Sorry, I'm the one who's asking you about what is it, the all lenders part. That's what
Yeah,
yeah.
is really important. On the one hand, the public lenders are governments, financial institutions, and that are like multilateral, bilateral agreements, and that has some conditionalities attached to it, and so many of those come with a colonial premise. So we dug it a bit into that, but and those are really tough because then there is this club of wealthy countries, which is the Paris Club, in which if you're having a problem, you go and say, well, where can I restructure my debt, like renegotiate it, and then you go, and it turns out is this club of lenders, of public lenders. Those who lend you the money are like, okay, let's review your case, and of course they are giving, then attaching much more conditionalities and much more dire situation, and it's all them. It's the rich countries, the wealthy countries, who sit down and they solve into a very opaque situation. It's just negotiation on one without having collective discussions, and so it is very tough. And so that again brings us to the very undemocratic global situation that we're living in. But on the other hand, there is also the situation of the private lenders, that because at least the public lenders have this forum, and there is a possibility to discuss the terms and the crisis in other spaces, like well, we wanted to bring it to the UN again with through a debt workout mechanism that is transparent, that addresses both private and public, and that is not in the hands of the most powerful, like the Paris Club. But also the situation of the private lenders is more dire, even so, because they're totally isolated, and they're residing in regulatory fiscal frames like in New York or London, in which they're the ones who are getting all of the benefits, and there is no possibility for them to be regulated or to be brought into the table, to be more transparent in the way they're imposing their conditions. So we see that there is a lot of abuse from the part of private lenders, and we don't even have a full account on because they're also hiding in secrecy policies. So there's a lot of discussion about the private lenders. So the discussion on debt cancellation goes exactly as well to private debts, and not only the public. So there is this call for global solution, that is the debt workup mechanism, which is like a space for renegotiation, for uh, the possibility of canceling debts, for restructuring under a space that is under the auspices of the United Nations, with one vote, one voice, one country,
Yeah, yeah.
and with the participation of civil society under the human rights framework, etc., with all of the UN principles, because we cannot keep on being in these like perverse global dynamics, right?
Mm, mm. Yeah, and then that's true. That's one of that's really one of the, what do you call it, demand also coming from the
Yes.
statement, right? That the fair, transparent, binding multilateral framework for debt crisis resolution. That's what definitely that you said. Under the auspices of the UN, yeah. But it's also what we really want is a resolution that address really unsustainable and illegitimate debt and
Yeah.
recognize the priority of human rights. That is very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important for all of us, everyone who are listening to us, to look at the statement and then join the Global Week of Action for Justice and
Yes.
Reconciliation. Well, a lot of endorsement already. I think that Equidat already endorsed, APWLD, my organization, already endorsed, and then we also spread it out to our members who are also endorsing it. So let's make it this big, big movement for
Yeah.
justice and reconciliation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say as well that the campaign of campaigns with Equidad, with Latindad and Eurodad, we worked on a cabaret Zoom scene, like a cabaret. Don't bother the word in English. It's like, cabaret, like a theater, like a play.
Okay.
So we worked on a cabaret Zoom for the,
Cabaret, or you mean cabaret? Okay, okay,
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
cabaret. Yeah,
Oh my God, so
yeah.
nice.
So cabaret Zoom play. So these are feminist actresses from many years ago in Mexico, which are called las reinas chulas, like the pretty queens. And so they put on the stage many political issues from this with a sense of humor and singing and dancing and stuff. And so we called them to help us to work on a play, on a Zoom play on debt from a
Mm.
feminist and decolonial view. And so they wrote these amazing songs and they have these amazing characters and it's hilarious. The play is kind of you get a lot of anguish, but then you laugh and then you get angry and, and you see the World Bank and the IMF, their characters and the global south and the global north. And it all goes down to the impacts of women in their daily life, right? Because it's debt goes through everything. If the state cannot afford to pay for public services, then people need to pay it on their own, and that's when people get indebted themselves, or with the financialization, everything goes through the banking institutions, and now you are owing more to the bank with your credit card, etc., and you are or the small loans to afford whatever emergency women are having. So everything piles up, and if the public services are privatized, then you need to
Yeah,
pay more
yeah.
for a really bad service provided by the private companies, etc. So it is hilarious. So it was done in Spanish. So we had 10 sessions that were live for people to connect across the Latin American region and also in Spain, um, in different moments. And they got a chance to talk to dead experts at the same time after watching the play. And the actresses themselves, they were saying, oh, this is too tough, but how they could relate to this macro analysis. And from our end, we really wanted to have this play to be done to mobilize the feminist movement as well, right? Because it's really powerful in terms of SRHR, against the criminalization of abortion. And we said we need to bring this debate on that right at the core again to the feminist voices. So this has a feminist message, and so it's hilarious, and we're trying now to do subtitles headings to in English so that we can share it broadly, and we're working on it. So that is also our contribution from the Latin American perspective, and the Hispano-American, right? Because Eurodad was also adding a lot of their knowledge and their inputs and their vision. So it's a collaboration that we are very proud of, and
Oh my
hopefully we
God,
can
that's
share it.
amazing. No, can the Spice Girl join?
Yeah, right.
I we want this Spice Girl join in this. Oh my God, that sounds
Yes,
amazing. It really
it
sounds
is.
amazing. It
It
sounds
is.
amazing.
Yeah, because I think it's what we are trying to do with the Despise Girls, right? Like
Yeah.
to leave it out, take it outside from the technical lingo that is really scaring people and say, oh no, no, this is so complex, you don't understand, so just go and deal with your stuff, and really say, no, this is impacting us all, this pertains to us all, and in a language that we can all understand. But more importantly, because we need your help, we need everybody's involvement and understanding of the situation, we need everyone's support and everybody joining into these demands on debt cancellation, on debt justice, and to see all of the actors that are at play, right? So this is why we will announce it once we have the link of the play. with English subtitles so that everybody can enjoy and use it for your own purposes. The songs are just fantastic.
Oh
You
my
will see. Yes,
God.
I know.
When do you think you will launch this? Like, I really.
Um, yeah, I hope we can have it by the end of this month. So we
Oh,
will hopefully in the next episode of the Despise Girls we can let you know.
yes.
Yes.
No, because I think it's really really important, right? Like in November 14 until 16, is that correct? November there will be G20 summit in in Indonesia, in Bali, the one that I told you about before, and
Yeah.
then also I share it right to the Despise Girls. And then we will gather women there, right? We will talk the issue because right now the G20 is talking about recover together, recover stronger. But they're talking about the issue of debt, financing, and then they're also talking about the issue of climate, right? And digital transformation. They're actually not talking about climate. Their issue is about energy transition, but it's
Uh-huh.
just another different name with whole solution, which is
Yeah.
marketplace and everything. So we will gather women, Amelia, in this G20 to debunk the myth of G20. But
Yes.
the government is also very oppressive
Mm.
currently. With that, is not easy for us to actually make a big demonstration or rally. But what is going to happen is that we're going to have a women's summit that is going to we will have like 100 women, and I think that the issue.
Wow.
Yes, 100, 150 lah. I mean, for APWLD, we try to gather all of our Asia Pacific,
Yes.
especially those in the G20 countries, to actually gather and then be in solidarity with
Yeah.
diverse grassroots women in Indonesia. And then we are going to talk about this. And I was wondering whether that we can do something like this, like to unpack the
Yeah.
issue, and then together, and then the script can come from the sharing of our
Oh,
women
yes.
about, yeah, right,
Exactly.
so we
Yes.
share first and then we come up with something.
That's a
Hmm.
great idea. That's a great idea.
You
Yeah.
inspired me.
Yes,
It is really great,
we are
yeah.
shifting from being activists to really do creative um how is it called? Activism.
That's what, okay, before it become artificial, but that's what activists all about, no? We
Yeah,
need to be
activism.
creative with all the oppression and repression that we got, yeah.
So
Oh,
you're gonna be in November with the G20, G7,
G20, G20 summit.
G20. So you're
Yeah,
not
G20.
coming to the COP.
No, I'm not coming to the COP. There's another person that was going from APWLD that going to the COP.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's
and
this.
then it's happening in the same time.
Yes,
There's a lot
I
of
can
things
see.
happening at the same time.
Yeah, but then I think you will be involved in the another point of entry for the issue of that is public services. There is a meeting on public services in Chile in December.
I
Are
know.
you coming?
Our future is public. That's the name of
Yeah.
the. Yeah, I think that it's maybe I can come because it's after the this what do you call it, G20 meeting, right?
G20.
If I'm not mistaken, 29 November until 2 December, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's 2 to 5, 2 December to 5.
Oh, 2 to even 2 December to okay. Then it's
Yeah.
something. Okay, okay. 2 to 5 December.
You
And then
should
what is
come.
are you going there?
Yeah. We need to meet, Trina.
Yes, you met with
Okay.
that all the
Yeah,
time.
because let's tell the people why public services are related to that.
That's true. That's true. So what is this forum? I understand that there will be different movement coming,
Yeah.
on this meeting.
Yeah, because public services is right at the key, right? There it intersects with so many points of entry. For instance, there's a big neoliberal push for privatizing public services. There's a big money involved, but of course, the private companies just come and deplete the projects of any quality, and then they overcharge, and then the people is the one who end up paying. But on the other hand, it's precisely this process that governments are so indebted that they cannot pay on their own public services, and then they are forced to privatize the public services, and then again, with the low quality, and especially women and those most discriminated communities are the ones that are most impacted. But on the other hand, it is this idea that everything has to be paid with private funding, because public funding should not be expanded, and that is ridiculous, because precisely at this moment, which precisely with more of the environmental crisis, public funding is more important now than ever. And there are many debates in the against the notion of economic growth on its own, and the expansion of the private funding comes with a logic of economic growth, as opposed to those premises of well-being of people and the planet that rely more on less carbon intensive activities. And for instance, is way more less carbon intensive a public services with, like public transportations that can carry 100 of people than just one car that is charging privately to bring one passenger to another space, or in the larger space, the private jets as opposed to the commercial carriers, etc. So there is also an environmental debate to be done with the public services, and in the larger extent, the quality of life that we want for the people. So the debt crisis comes in the middle of all of this, precisely because it won't allow the governments to make decisions about its people. So that is another point of entry that we want to make on regarding to that, to this, our future is public
Our future is
space,
public.
because there will be a gathering of trade unions, feminists,
Oh,
environmentalists, economic justice activists, and also one that is really important, and a debate on the relevance of the democratic nature of intellectual property rights, which is another dimension that involves technology, and so many of the issues on vaccines, etc. So all of that is gonna be in the discussion of public services, how all of those elements should be public.
oh my God. So there's a lot of movement coming in together to put
Yes,
thoughts together, and then
yes,
the idea is actually to have a common analysis or a sharing space, or we want to make some, manifesto or statement, or I think
ah,
that it's a big event, right? We really want to get something out of it, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
it's it's, it's amazing. It's amazing. Oh my God. So it's going to be in December. And then I know a lot of group also. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a lot of back to back. Maybe this is also their strategy. Yeah. But this, our future is public, is definitely civil society driven, isn't it?
Yes,
Amelia?
entirely. This is ours. This is our space. And just for people to know, we started this Despise Girls with the pandemic. Now that we're seeing that people is starting slowly to go out to the world, some with more or less obstacles, it's been harder to still, it's hard for civil society to meet, right? It's not easy for everybody. The pandemic is actually not over. We're seeing a new rise in contagion, so it seems like this winter in the western areas are gonna be tough. So we still need to be mindful, but at the same time, uh, all of these crises also happened without the civil society watch, because we couldn't connect and meet and strategize. So it's also very important to try in whatever form to be connected, even either virtually, and if it's possible, in person. No, so that is
Yeah.
also one of the purposes of these gatherings.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm looking at the future is public. What
Yes.
do you call it? Website right now. Oh no, 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 no. That is the different one. Our future is public. This one is the future is public in 2000. That's a different one. Okay, I see. I
Okay.
see. That's
Rina,
great.
our time is up.
Already? My God, Amelia, we need more time. What do
I
you mean?
know, and we need Tete.
Okay. So yeah, we miss you, Tet, definitely, and then we miss everyone. So I know that the Spice Girl hasn't been cons- regulars, not consistent, but regulars.
No,
But we are consistent in demanding economic justice. From from a feminist lens, always, all the time, whatever we are, whatever we do, we're always consistent on that. So
we
I hope
are.
that the next weeks, no, the other
Yeah,
two
let's have it next week, hopefully.
Yeah, next week we're going to be
We
able
can
to.
try
Let's
with
try. We
Tete.
will with that definitely
Yeah.
the three of us, and then we're going to have our catch up session, knowing
Yes.
just knowing what we're doing. So yeah, so I think
Yes.
that's it for this time, everyone, and then don't forget to join the global week of justice, and then also debt cancellation.
Yes, and
Thank you.
sign all of the links that we have been posting on debt cancellation and not in our name. Yay. Love you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye bye
Ciao.
bye bye bye. Ciao. Ciao ciao ciao.
We're still